Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Wayne Baker and I'm one of the staff therapists with Affair Recovery. We're going to continue our discussion about are you forgivable? And as I mentioned last week, this is partly determined by your current beliefs about forgiveness. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two very different things, but reconciliation is not possible without forgiveness. However, if you're not willing to explore why you might be difficult to forgive, especially after an infidelity, you'll sabotage this most important relationship in your life, and while continuing to just further injure them. I believe that there's a great deal of confusion about what it means to forgive. And for the sake of our discussion on being forgivable, let me separate between these two different types of forgiveness. The first type I'm going to refer to as forgiveness, and that's really a matter of personal choice, and it really has little to do with the other person. It's an internal decision that really we all have made or have to make that releases the other person and the hold that we have on them for the wrongs that they committed against us. This internal forgiveness is a gift that we give ourselves. It frees us to move forward. It frees you from resentments and bitterness, but it has very little to do with reconciliation, and it is certainly possible regardless of the actions of the other person. The second type of forgiveness, if we're going to call it that, we refer to as reconciliation. It's certainly possible to forgive, but not to reconcile with the offending party. Being forgivable refers to the offending party being safe enough for the offended party to take a risk of reconciliation. While someone may choose to forgive another person for the harm they've done, it does not mean they have to reconcile. Reconciliation is really dependent on safety. And that's what I'm referring to when I talk about being forgivable, about reconciliation. It's all about the other party, both parties feeling safe. Most of the time, there is a full taking of responsibility of whatever the actions were, especially in the cases of infidelity and sexual addiction. Are you safe? Are you safe enough? Are you someone who has proven to be trustworthy and worth the risk of relationship? Are you willing to make amends and take responsibility with those who've been devastated by your actions? The misperceptions about forgiveness may be one of the reasons why others struggle with forgiving you. Believing the following forgiveness myths will make you very difficult to forgive. For your own sake, the offended party may be able to forgive what you've done, but certain tightly held beliefs about forgiveness can be a deal breaker, especially when it comes to restoring the relationship. And I'm going to talk about 7 myths about forgiveness which complicate the whole reconciliation process. Myth number 1, if I say I'm sorry, you have to forgive me. My favorite way I hear this said in my office a lot of time is that I said I'm sorry, now the Bible says you've got to forgive me. That's not a good response. You got to remember that forgiveness is a gift. It's not an inalienable right. If someone you trusted embezzled a significant amount of money and then said that they were really sorry, would you simply forgive them? If they reminded you that they had said they were sorry, so that you had to forgive them, would that make you more likely to forgive them? I don't think so. If that person wasn't concerned about the trouble they'd caused, if they weren't interested in doing whatever it took to help you recover, would you have any desire to continue that relationship? 12-step programs teach us the need to make living amends. It's not just a matter of saying you're sorry, it's also living out your amend, doing what's necessary to help the other person recover from what you've taken from them. It's focusing far more on the damage you've done to them than on how they're responding to you. Being forgivable has no expectation of reconciliation. It's doing everything you can to help them heal from the damage that they've done. Myth number 2, if you truly forgive me, then you'll trust me. Back to the above mentioned analogy that I was talking about. Let's say you choose to forgive the friend who embezzled that significant amount of money. You've accepted what they did and let go of any desire for vengeance. You even came to the point of wanting nothing but good for them. If they said they told you they were really sorry, would you feel comfortable blindly trusting them with your money again? Or would it take time for you to determine whether they're trustworthy? You know, after you file bankruptcy, banks will not extend you large lines of credit. In fact, for a season, they would extend you no credit at all. From their perspective, you're not a good risk. When they are finally willing one day to extend credit, it will only be for a small amount. Oddly enough, they really require you to prove that you can be trustworthy before they'll once again trust you. And it's the same way with the marital union. You murdered it. And in the process, you devastated your spouse. And it's normal for couples to make incremental moves in reestablishing trust. It's the process of proving you can be trusted and that you're safe enough for that to happen. It opens the door for complete reconciliation and restoration. Forgiveness is a gift, but trust is reestablished over time by an individual repeatedly showing trustworthiness. Myth number 3, if you forgive me, then we shouldn't have to talk about this anymore. It's true that after forgiveness, the offended party will no longer need to punish or seek revenge. Yet a key fact that the unfaithful spouse often misses is the need for the betrayed spouse to process what happened many times, over and over and over again. An even deeper truth lies in the understanding that processing, talking about it, what happened, isn't punishment. If someone has been traumatized, they may choose to forgive, but it will take time and support to come to the point where they can truly understand and accept what's happened. Healing a traumatic wound requires talking about it until the betrayed spouse can wrap his or her mind around it. And that just takes time and many, many, many conversations. If they're grieving and emotional, that doesn't mean they haven't forgiven or that they're not open to it. What that really means is they're just trying to understand. I see people rolling this around in their head. You can see it almost as they talk about it. They're just trying to understand. How did they get here? What happened? That kind of thing. The only reason the injured party keeps talking about it isn't because that they don't want to be with you. They talk about it because they're trying to understand so that they can be with you. If they can't get to a peaceful place of processing, it's wrong to assume that they will ever be able to be with you, the unfaithful spouse, for any reason, for any length of time. Myth number 4. This is where it gets really dicey. What you'll hear is, I shouldn't have to admit I'm wrong if they don't admit they were wrong also. You will never be forgivable if you require reciprocity from the one you've offended. And I don't care what the situation is, certainly in the cases of infidelity. This is a tough point to process in the mind of the unfaithful one. Requiring the other party to also ask for forgiveness allows you to escape responsibility and provides with justifications for what you've done. Asking someone to forgive you has nothing to do with what they've done. Blackmailing the other person to also admit their wrongs is not asking for forgiveness. It's asking for justification for your wrong actions. I'm responsible for me. Hopefully, I care enough about others to be grieved when I hurt them. And I hope that they can heal regardless of whether or not they take responsibility for their actions. It's kind of keeping your side of the street clean, regardless of what they do. Myth number 5, I deserve to be forgiven. To believe you deserve to be forgiven mitigates the sacrifice of the wounded party to forgive you and makes you unforgivable. Remember, forgiveness is a gift. It's not a right. When we wound another person, what we deserve is the loss of the relationship. We can only hope that we don't get what we deserve and that they extend mercy and grace. Forgiveness may seem easy to give, but forgiveness comes at a great cost to that wounded party. Myth number 6, I don't deserve to be forgiven, so why even ask? And surprisingly, I see this a lot in my office. The point is, we don't deserve to be forgiven. But living in self-pity is really kind of pathetic, and it keeps us in that victimhood. Taking away the other person's choice to forgive is really kind of cowardly. To be forgiven, you need the courage to let the other person make their own choice about forgiveness. Be willing to accept the mercy and grace that the other one extends to you if they so choose. You may be the last person to forgive you, especially in the situations of infidelity, but you have to be open to that piece too. Myth number 7, forgiveness is a one-time event. If you believe that forgiveness is a one-time event, you will never be safe to forgive because you never respect the effort, the process, the excruciating lengths that the other party has to go through to work through everything that you've done. Forgiveness is a willingness to live with the consequences of another person's moral failure. But each one of those consequences has to be worked through. If the person who's choosing to forgive is committed to releasing the ongoing pain of what you've done, then appreciate the sacrifice, appreciate the hard work that they are making, really for your sake and for the sake of the relationship. So there are probably many other myths about forgiveness. These are just a few that the unfaithful spouse may believe that make it difficult to be truly forgivable after an infidelity. If you're grieved about the pain you've caused your spouse or another person, then you'll do the work to be forgivable. Alternately, if you're worried about the potential cost of asking for forgiveness, you won't be forgivable at all. If you're struggling with this concept because of shame, defensiveness, ambivalence, I'd invite you to consider signing up for our Hope for Healing course. It is truly one of the safest places I know of for both spouses to work through not only the barriers to recovery, but establishing the new patterns of communication and relational safety. So thanks for watching and being with me today. Next week, we're going to wrap up this series on becoming forgivable, and we're going to take a look at some really bad apologies.